Yet another Eurogirl wanted to go to the Caliphate. There've been hundreds so far. Why? Let's explore. Hello everyone, and welcome to another installment of Freedom Alternative Research and Analysis. Yet another young woman born and raised in Europe was narrowly prevented from joining the Islamic State, this time a Swedish one. Expressen titles Swedish girl arrested, she wanted to join the Islamic State. And goes like this, quote, a 17-year-old girl has been arrested in Austria. According to the family, she was heading to Syria to join the Islamic State. She is on the international wanted list, and both the security service and the NOA are engaged in the matter. A 17-year-old girl based in Linköping is on the international wanted list since Wednesday. According to her family, the girl left the country this week to join the Islamic State in Syria. Police confirms that the case has been opened. This girl was reported missing earlier in the week, and she was placed on the list according to the rules, even internationally, says Torbjörn Lindqvist, an officer in Linköping. According to the family, the girl has been radicalized in recent months. She has kept on locking herself in the room and must have watched several videos that are linked to the Islamic State, and she also talked positively about the Islamic State in certain contexts. The family has also found notes in which she expresses support for persons who have been indicted in the United Kingdom to have had connections to ISIS, according to the family. She cannot understand at what danger she exposes herself. She's totally brainwashed by them, says one of the girl's cousins. The girl was born and raised in Sweden and used to go to high school. I've barely slept in 3 days, says her anxious mother. The girl was reportedly arrested in Vienna, Austria on Saturday afternoon. This was due to the family, who managed to track her phone and then informed the Austrian police. The Austrian police arrested her after having made contact with the family and said that the Swedish police had to contact them so they would be able to keep her. When Expressen contacted police Saturday evening, no contacts have been established with the Austrian authorities. We have contacted the international unit of NOA. They were invited by us to contact Austrian authorities to see if it is true that Austrian police have taken care of this girl, added Torbjörn Lindqvist. Later on Saturday night, the social emergency services in Linköping intervened and the Austrian authorities were contacted. How long can they keep her in custody is uncertain, according to the police. Also, according to the police, it is a complex case to bring home the 17-year-old girl. It is not an obvious and simple solution. This girl is reported missing, but she is not suspected of any crime, so there are no coercive measures that the Swedish police can legally take against her. The Swedish police have no way to force her back on a plane to Austria. The National Operations Divisions, the NOA in Sweden, confirms that it has been engaged to contact the Austrian authorities. The Austrian police say they are not able to confirm the information on whether they have indeed taken the Swedish 17-year-old into custody. A close family friend, who also has a major involvement in a local sorority, hopes for closer cooperation with the police in the future. It was us that found her, and it was we who contacted the police. But we really hope that we can cooperate more with the authorities so we can prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future. It had to happen now, she says. The girl's father is now hoping that his daughter would be brought back to Sweden. We have been notified and warned, but we do not know whether the matter is indeed taken seriously. We are very worried, he added. Now, this case is just the latest out of so many other similar cases. The Norwegian state television, NRK, adds to the reporting of this case the fact that around 300 women and men from Sweden alone have left to join the Caliphate, though 115 of those have returned to Sweden in the meantime. The Swedish Security Service was reporting in July, cited by the local, that around 40 Swedish women had defected to the Islamic State. And while some of these are being taken there by force, a strong majority of them go there by their own volition. Now, let's notice an aspect here. Throughout the reporting of all these cases, a very relevant information is missing: the ethnicity. And that's not an accident, at least not in Sweden. In fact, it's expressly forbidden in the Swedish media to ethnically identify anyone if it comes to negative things. It's okay to say that Zlatan Ibrahimovic is one of the new svenskar, but not so okay to do so when Somalis rape 11-year-olds whilst telling them that black dick is valuable. That's not progressive. In late November, the media announced us that the, quote, teenage Austrian poster girl for the Islamic State was killed by the group for trying to escape. But then we learned that her name was Sabra Keshinovic, which, forgive me for being an asshole, is just not an Austrian name, no matter how much we're urged by the media to pretend otherwise. The most famous case involving allegedly Swedish women and jihad is the case of the wife of the allegedly British jihadi Ibrahim al-Mazwagi, who was also killed in battle around 2 years ago. Does Ibrahim al-Mazwagi sound British to you? His wife, with whom he has a child, is Swedish, yet her name is Fatem Umfida, or sometimes Fatem al-Mandlawi. Again, sorry for being insensitive, but that is not a Swedish woman. We can pretend otherwise as much as we want, but reality cannot be avoided forever. The Swedish Fatem al-Mandlawi is still very active in recruiting other Swedish women from her base in Manbij in Syria. She speaks impeccable Arabic and broken Swedish. Where I'm getting with this is that for as long as everyone plays the pretend game of supposedly Westerners who are drawn to jihad, there can be no sensible discussion on the issue, let alone a sensible addressing of it. The number of actual Europeans who defected to Daesh and al-Nusra and the rest of the loons out there is actually minuscule. Most of those 5,000 Europeans who went there are not European at all. And I don't mean that in a racial sense, but in a commonsensical sense. One does not become European just because one was born in Europe. Someone who doesn't speak and doesn't want to speak the language of the nation one lives in, someone who actively refuses all the values of that nation in favor of a 7th century supremacist ideology, someone who doesn't name his children with a name close to the nation he lives in, and so on and so forth, that's someone who is not in any meaningful way European. Now you can call me a racist all you want. In fact, I've come to consider that I might be doing something wrong if I don't get called a racist for an entire week. But the fact of the matter remains that many countries of Europe, Sweden being the champion in this department, genuinely do have a sizable minority of people in them who are not in any way, shape or form part of their society. Now, I'm not saying that all those who live in Sweden should shit yellow and blue and that all Austrian girls should be named Sigrid and whatnot, but I am saying that there is a consistent pattern with all of these. They are all essentially foreign to their countries of origin despite being born and raised there. Even that basic connection to one's home country is simply missing. These people don't think or feel Swedish or Austrian or French or whatever. They just don't. Now, in the case with which I started this video, the family acts all concerned and worried, and they may indeed be genuine. I mean, despite the impression that I sometimes project, I am completely aware that there are immigrant families who genuinely do wish to integrate and genuinely do whatever they think is best toward that goal. But the problem is that many of them do indeed fail. And your daughter leaving voluntarily towards Syria is a good measurement of complete and utter failure. And it's easy, but nonetheless correct, to say that these families are in part responsible for that failure and that they should supervise their children better and whatnot. Sure, all of that is fine and dandy, but look at it from the other perspective. And what I'm about to say is going to offend quite a lot of people, but someone has to say it. So look at it from this girl's perspective. What did she see at the high school as she was growing up? And again, demographic data is hard to find, but according to this nice little PDF, Linköping loses around 7,800 people annually through emigration, that is, people permanently moving away from there, and gains around 8,300 people through immigration. We can use our common sense to know who is leaving and who is coming. So most likely our 17-year-old, now in custody in Austria, saw at the high school a bunch of self-loathing teachers who not only failed to trumpet the wonders of Sweden, but likely actively shouted down anyone trying to say anything nice about the Swedish traditions and culture. In addition to that, she also saw a chronic lack of spine from the figures of authority and probably some ghettoization and self-segregation amongst the youths who aren't really all bound by the Swedish glue and appreciation for the Swedish society. Now, think a little bit. A 17-year-old girl tends to look for strong male role models. No matter how much feminist rhetoric you power, humans don't work that way. 17-year-old girls will look up for strong men, and 17-year-old boys will look up to become strong men. That's how reality works. And her father didn't even bother to check what she was looking at and did not intervene at all to prevent her radicalization. Her teachers, virtually all women, also had nothing to say about her radicalizations in the months upcoming to this event and could definitely not provide the strong role model that the teenagers do indeed yearn and aspire to. I know, that's offensive and cis-sexist and heteronormative and blah 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 blah. But offensive or not, it's still true. And the fact of the matter is that people work on incentives and desires. And no matter how hard it is to admit, the multi-culti fantasy does create the incentives to allow the natural desires of individuals to lead them to Al-Nusra, Daesh, and the other loons in the desert. Let me give you another example to make the point clearer. There is a similar number of Muslims, around 50,000 people, in both Finland and Slovakia. Yet Finland is the country with the highest number of jihadis per capita in the world, whereas 0 Slovak Muslims were tempted to go full jihad in the last 25 years. Ever wonder why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because in Slovakia, being a Slovak first and foremost is trumpeted every single day. There are no accommodations in services for those who don't speak Slovak. If you want to be in Slovakia, you must learn Slovak. End of story. In contrast, in Finland, the state will pay for translators in all the languages on earth just so they won't be called racist. Although, to be fair, Sweden is a far worse offender in this department. In Slovakia, there are no legal protections for hate speech and nobody gives a flying toss that you are offended by a Slovak flag, by national holiday celebrations, or by any other element of the Slovak culture being openly displayed on Slovak soil. In contrast, in Sweden and many other nations in the former Western Bloc, your case can make national news if you're offended enough, and flags may indeed be taken down in order to avoid offending you in the future. Now, I could go on like this forever, but you get my point. For as long as the locals aren't willing to trumpet their own culture, language, and civilization, what reasons and what incentives do immigrants have to at least attempt to do so? You see, many countries of the former Western Bloc have ceased to tell a story. It's not a matter of the Islamist savages telling a better story, it's a matter of the Islamist savages being the only ones who do tell a story to begin with. They have a desire to live, expand, and promote their values, as wicked and as messed up as they are, but they are willing to tell the story. Many nations of the former Western Bloc have ceased to do so for quite some time. Even worse, some of them have started to tell counter-stories, such as Mrs. Merkel's "we don't have a right to a German identity" crap. If that's the story you're telling, don't be surprised if the newcomers find radicalizations a lot more attractive. You know, as wicked as she is, and she is, Marine Le Pen was willing to tell a story. At a rally in Corsica, she said, quote, "To merit French nationality, you have to speak French, eat French, and live French." End of quote. Well, that's a story. A simplistic and rather incomplete one, but at least it's something. And it's a lot more than what France has been saying for the last 2 decades. So, you want to prevent such cases in the future? Well, making the place more totalitarian and integrating police forces for better coordination is just a patch. It doesn't address the root causes. For as long as you have weak families and you don't even try to tell a story about why it's better to live in Sweden or Austria or France than it is to live in the Islamic State, there will be more such cases, not less. And mind you, these cases are just the extreme end of the problem. The problem goes a lot deeper than this. Most of the individuals don't go as far as to go full jihad, but they just linger in boredom somewhere at the edge of the society, and when the time will come, they won't notify anyone if they see another jihadi preparing the next attack because they don't care about their home country anyway. Worse even, some natives have also become reluctant to notify anyone about such issues out of fear of being called racists. That's why it's important to take back the culture. That's why it's important to tell a story, and that's why it's important to crush political correctness and throw it into the dustbin of history. Because culture is everything. An idea, a nation, an identity, these things don't survive if we don't trumpet them. And these things are the glue that ties everything together. And if that glue is constantly being undermined, and it is right now, the whole place will either crumble or the glue itself will be replaced by a stronger glue, by a stronger culture that does not have a death wish and does want to live. Alright, I think that's enough for now, so did I miss something? Am I being too harsh here? Please do tell me in the comments. You may think it's not worth it, but what I've said here will be the main question in the following years. Identity will start to matter again. And some of you, the older subscribers, have already noticed that I have a thing about getting the topics before their news. That's not an accident. It's just that I know where to look. Anyway, with all of that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you around on Freedom Alternative.